All right.
Sorry. Chuck, I am absolutely honored to have you here today. First episode of the Roof Monkey podcast. I am excited. And I thought, what better way than to start my first podcast with a bang, right?
Amen. Let's
How have
do it.
you been? How have you been
I'm
doing?
so pleased to be here, and I'm very proud of you for starting this up. This is great.
Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about for quite a while, and I never did it, and I said it's time to try it. If I don't like it, I'll drop out of it. But
There
yeah,
you go.
we all know how I like to talk, so I thought it was something I would quite enjoy.
Perfect. All
So yeah,
right.
not I don't know how I know quite a few people know you, and I think quite a few of those people know you from Top Rep, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Mhm.
And that's how me and our company have gotten to know you quite well. There is with Top Rep. And so just tell us a little bit, what is your story and what exactly brought you to where you are today?
Yeah. So I've not been in home improvement my entire career. I actually went through school for electronic engineering, and then I was an aerospace engineer for about 4.5 years for Bombardier Learjet. Yeah. So
That
I worked on business jets. I designed certain pieces. Also, before I was a full engineer, I was a troubleshooter. Where they it's funny, they would call us the special forces because we actually knew that airplane inside and out. So when techs or anybody could not figure it out, it was our job to jump on a jet and fly out to wherever this plane is, figure out what the problem was, and then fly back. Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed it. You definitely have to be single. It's pretty hard to be married and to be that type of a troubleshooter or an engineer because you're never home. And then of course 9/11 happened and we all got displaced. So, at that point, I decided to come back home to Ohio because at that point I was in Montreal, Canada, at an apartment there, and my office was in Wichita, Kansas. So I would, people, they would laugh when they're like, okay, so how do you get to Montreal, Canada? I says, I took my corporate vehicle. And they're like, what's that? I said, a Learjet. I would fly to Canada on Monday, and then I would take a Learjet home on Friday to see my family.
that is absolutely crazy. Yeah, I could definitely see. I mean, especially having to when they called you, you had to drop everything. You didn't really have a
Everything.
choice. I mean, once you were there, you were there. So, I
Yeah,
could
even
see how that would
back
take.
then it was a pager that would go off. My spouse at the time, my ex now, but my spouse at the time, she wanted to take that thing and throw it because that thing was always going off. I would get home for dinner and the thing would go off and sorry, gotta go.
Gotta go. Keep it warm, honey. Right.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah. Then once you moved back, how did you start getting into the industry?
So really quick, just a quick story through. I started in life and health insurance, and I quickly became out of I think it was just over 1,000 reps. I became number two in the country, and then I was one of I went from anywhere between one and number 10 when I went to Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And then from there, I had to get out because I just didn't enjoy it. And then I got into home improvement. Well, actually got into mortgage, loved mortgage, but the bubble was about to burst. And then got into home improvement. When I got into home improvement, it was through a company called Bathfitter. And at that time, it was actually called Bath Magique out of Canada. And so then it turned into Bathfitter, and you can see how big it was, or how big it is today. It's about $2 billion today. but it hasn't grown much since I left. And then went to Abel and Mr. Roof and was there for about 4.5 years, almost. Well, yeah, about 5 years.
What was your exact role inside of that company?
Inside of Abel and Mr. Roof.
Able, yes.
So I was I was the head of sales, is what it was. I did not
Okay.
touch and people always say, "Oh, okay, so you know commercial," because they're very well known for commercial. Even though 90% of what Able and Mr. Roof did was residential, and I did not touch the commercial division. They had a whole
Okay.
separate. It was actually a separate company called CI, Contractors Incorporated.
Okay. So how did if they separated the commercial from the residential, and they had it basically a whole new company, um, how did they differentiate that? Like, did they do the same installers? I mean, obviously commercial is a different aspect than
Yeah,
residential,
completely
or were
different. Yeah, even the residential guys could not sell commercial. They had no choice but to push it over. And same thing, the commercial guys would have to push their residential over to us. Yeah, we
I
did not
gotcha. Okay.
commingle at all.
I gotcha. All right. Yeah.
But
So
it was
how
a
do
fun
you
experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
I definitely think sorry, go ahead.
no, no, it's just with Abel and Mr. Roof, it's how it all started with Abel was they were bought out by the Crane Group, the same people that have Crane siding, that kind of stuff. And so once they bought them out, they wanted to take it across the country. Well, then they found out that there was Able everything, Able bad, then Able, and so they're like, okay, we can't take Able across the country. So they were looking for a different brand, and they found this little company up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, called Mr. Roof. And so they bought this little company, and so they made 8 more locations out of Mr. Roof, and really decided that they really didn't want to put locations everywhere. They realized that it wasn't a whole lot of fun. And the amount of money that it would take to get each location up off the ground. When you put locations, and you can either buy companies to put locations, or you can organically put locations. But if you're going to do that, the most effective way to build other locations is through Canvas. If you think you're going to
Mhm.
go into a new area and you're just going to jump on TV, I mean, we weren't profitable for the first 2 years in each location. And I mean, I can't tell you what the budget was, but it wasn't cheap. It was over $1 million in in those areas just to get those locations up off the ground. It was not easy to do.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like, the different locations and having that hard time, the franchises, you would wonder how picky they actually have to be with their marketing strategies because of that reason.
Yeah, we had in-house marketing, and so I mean, the expenses that Abel and Mr. Roof had were quite large. The people, there was over 300 people in that organization. Yep,
That's
it
crazy,
was
but
it was a
yeah.
blast. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you probably don't regret having that experience because I've personally feel that
Not at all.
experience is one of the best teachers you can have.
Yeah, I could sit and talk all day about some of the lessons learned, some of the people, the people that you just don't typically get a chance to see and work with. One of them, and I get to see him a lot now, Jim Zeminski. He was our president, and the you really have to work with Jim to understand the power behind him. I mean, the guy he just gets it. Um, he's very firm but very fair, and he understands how to manage a team as well as run a company. I mean, he was just an amazing individual. Quick story. I mean, you wouldn't think. I mean, the president of a company that big, over $200 million. He asked me one day that because we were starting this window division, I knew nothing about windows at that time, and he says, "Hey, I want you to come in. I want you to give me because he wanted me to make the presentation, which in the end, we all, with the help of our marketing department, actually made it. And then he says, okay, I want you to come in. I want you to give me the window presentation. And so we had a whole team of window guys from Champion Windows. That's where my team came from, was Champion Windows. So I called my sales guys. I'm like, all right, guys, an intervention is in place. So these guys came in after their meetings, their sales appointments, and were teaching me Windows and making sure that I didn't go in front of Jim, looking like a complete ass. So, so but then I go in and I give my presentation to Jim, and he just kind of looks at me and he says, do you mind if I get a crack at it? And I'm like, yeah. He gave me, still today, I have not seen a better window presentation than he gave me that day. And I've worked with thousands of window people, window sales reps. Still to this day, I've not seen a window presentation that good. I mean, from a guy that hasn't sold windows in probably a decade, I was just blown away that he could do it that well.
What do you think it takes him, or just any rep in general in this industry, to refine their presentation to get it to that area?
So it really takes practice, but it also takes complete and utter talent. Yeah, I'm going to have to tell you that there are people that have skill, and then there are people that have talent. There's completely different. Skill is
Mhm.
something that you learn skill. Talent is something that you have. And when you find somebody that has, and I will tell you, there are out of thousands, probably I could maybe 50 or 60 people that I've gotten a chance to meet that have insane talent, like Jim or some of these other folks have.
So what you say practice, and I know practice, especially in our industry, can be used as such a vast majority of things to do, right?
Right.
Coming from a coach's standpoint of view, what type of practice do you recommend to refine that down?
So it really depends on how you like to learn. Some people are very visual. Some people can read and really pick things up. Other people have to put it into play. And so it really depends. And what I recommend for everybody is that you use every sense that you can. Obviously you can't smell, but if you can hear it and you can see it, and then have it given back to you, you can actually see it come back to you as well. There's so many different ways of seeing it that all of a sudden it starts to make sense. Because when we start to, I was telling somebody this, I'm going to back up a little bit. I was telling somebody this the other day, that there are natural born salespeople, and you teach them differently. Now they may go through the same training, but really they are taught a little bit differently than people that really are taught and trained and have to be taught how to sell. Because natural born salespeople, they do it their way. They will always do it their way. And they suck as sales leaders. They are horrible sales leaders because they don't even know why they're good. They cannot train somebody else because they have no idea why they're so good. They just know that they get it. These are natural people. They know how to talk. When we look at sales, it is simple communication. When we look at it, it is simple communication. We've had some people that say it's a transference of feeling, and it really is. But if you look at the entire piece of sales and how we train it today, we teach you how to communicate first so that you understand it, of how to communicate to another human being in that way. And then we start to bring in some scripting so that you know what to say and when to say it. But ultimately, that scripting does not make you good. It's the communication skills that we teach. It's how you say the words, it's how you sit, it's how, whether you're going to square off with the individual or are you going to turn slightly. There's a lot that really goes into it. And there are some things that are, you're splitting hairs, and there's other things that are absolutely, if you don't have it, you're not going to get it, inside of how we communicate.
Oh, I think I lost you there for a minute. I apologize. My connection must have been, yeah.
Nope.
How do you think the technology nowadays can either help or hinder a sales rep?
Well, it can make us into idiots really fast. you know
That it can.
the more you can show how professional you are and how much you know. Remember that sales is a perception game. And if you use a lot of technology during your sale, you make yourself look like an idiot. You really do. They even look at you like, why didn't you just do that from home? It doesn't even look like you had to be here to do that. So when we get up on a roof, we want to take video. We want to measure out the roof if we can, at least the ridge and maybe a slope or two, just so that we can show that we know what we're doing. Now we know that whether it's Eagle View or Hover or whatever is actually going to be what you go off of, but the homeowner does not need to see Eagle View or Hover. They don't. And if somebody goes up there and measures a roof, actually hand measures a roof, and the next person goes up and takes some pictures, come back down and shows Hover, I promise you, the person that hand measures the roof will get it every time. Because that homeowner wants someone that knows what they're doing to sell them a roof.
Correct. And I've already seen, that can cast a shadow of doubt pretty quickly as well for the homeowner. As far as they're like, well, how accurate is this thing? And I've already seen that they would rather trust that contractor to make a mistake in their hand measuring than to trust that computer.
Right. That's true.
So what do you think is one of the most common mistakes nowadays with that, as far as a rep going in and trying to um, be too much, so to speak, to basically go overboard with that?
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest issue is the fact that they depend too much on the technology. If you take the roof salesmen from 10 years ago to the folks today, I mean, we like to call the new sales reps coming in, we like to call them brochure reps. They know just enough to fit on the back of a brochure. They half the reps that are selling today barely know roofing. If you said, hey, see that shed over there, I want you to go roof the shed, they couldn't do it. And so it's tough. I'm not saying that a sales rep has to know everything, but they should know how the roof actually goes on. I have been in a house with a lot of newer reps where I just showed up, and I'm out with the doing some ride-alongs, and they have these little kits where they show the homeowner how the roof is supposed to go. And I'm like, this guy has no idea. He literally just put the underlayment underneath of the drip edge. I'm like, the water's going to go right underneath and soak the wood. It's like, okay, we have to almost teach them how the roof goes on, because not even the salesman, I don't know if the salesman just doesn't know, or they're just not teaching and training the right way. But again, I mean, the reps today, because of technology, they barely know how a roof goes on, let alone how to sell it. This is why roofing is so
What is
easy.
Yes, because I mean, you can Google how to put on a roof, and in the first 10 minutes, you're going to get 100 different answers on how to put that roof on. And to some extent, all 10 of those answers may be correct, but are they really?
Right. You're exactly
What
right.
is what is one of your go-to strategies for helping salespeople close more deals and do it consistently?
Well, One of them is the pivot point cards. That is a
Mm-hmm.
big go-to strategy for us. Yes. Another one is, and we're actually looking at doing this. We're looking at making cards that help you to understand how to communicate. I have coaches that I work with that that are pouring into us some new stuff, because just like Rilla for sales, there is technology out there that is monitoring how we communicate as well. Again, some people think or thought they know how to communicate long ago, and then we're finding out all the myths. And there are so many things that we're finding out now that like it was just best guess. When we learn how to sell, a lot of this was best guess. It really was. When a lot of this, like Yoho and stuff like that, they didn't have science that would back anything up. Now we do. We have data, we have science, and we have fact on how we sell. Things like, and I keep saying this in different podcasts, but there are a number of sales trainers out there, and they're still doing it because they don't know the data.
Mm-hmm.
We at Top Rep are one of the only coaches in the United States that have access to this type of data because of the partners that we have. It isn't because of stuff we have. It's because of partners that we have that is feeding us the data and allowing us to mine through it. And there are trainers out there that are using this. They're like, okay, so when you're in the house, you have to get the homeowner to start saying yes. And as many times as you can get them to say yes, they'll keep saying yes. And then you ask them for the order, and they're going to say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I knew that was pretty dumb when I heard it, but I didn't have anything to back up that it didn't work. Now we do. We have scientific data that tell you that you don't want the homeowner to say yes. You want them to say no. It just happens that that no means a yes.
And how many reps nowadays get the first no, and 2 minutes later they're out the door crying with their tails between their legs because they're scared of that no. But when you actually get down to it and you get all those no's out, you're just one step closer to that yes. And it's that I feel like it's that pain funneling process that you have to go through, not just for the homeowner, but for yourself as a rep to get to that point.
Right. I mean, if I were to ask you, Leah, is this something you want to go ahead and move forward with? That's like a commitment. It's like, I mean, you're almost trained to say, no, we're going to think about it. But if I
Hmm.
say, so Leah, let me ask, would you be against going ahead and getting this thing taken care of? And you're like, well, no, I'm not against it. Okay. Do you have your driver's license on you? So that, no, I'm not against it. They just told you yes to the deal. And
Yes,
so
yes,
I
because
just went a different way, so it didn't feel like it was a big commitment, or it didn't feel like the way they would typically be asked, where they would give you a preconditioned response.
correct, yeah, and you're getting me all pumped up here because 'cause I'm thinking about all these cards that I just held up, and I almost wanted to rebut back in your face. But leading leading into that, I gotta try and get my 3 points.
That's right.
Leading into that, people are wondering what I just meant by 3 points. Can you give us a little bit of information about Top Rep and what you guys do there? Because
Yeah.
I definitely think it's something that people need to check into, and if they have not been to a Top Rep, they have no idea what they're missing out on.
Yeah. So Top Rep has, so we do it twice a year. And at Top Rep, it's a competition. So the reason why it's a competition is that sales reps are athletes, and athletes like to compete. And when I say sales reps are athletes, they're the corporate athletes, if you will. And so athletes do like to compete. So we make it a competition. We want them, while they're there, to really want to go further than what they feel was possible. And if we just said, hey, we want you to practice while you're here, they're going to go halfway. But if they know that, hey, I want that black shirt, or I want that belt that says I'm a top rep, then I'm going to have to go all out. I'm really going to have to pour myself into this so that I can get somebody to give me a 5, 6 different times so I can get up on that leaderboard. And so while you're going through the competition, it's 6 different stages that you're going to learn sales, and it's from A to Z, from mindset to understanding your numbers first, and right at the beginning of the first day. Then we start in on phase 1, which is your entry and warm up. It's how you're going to enter the house, and then we're going to take you all the way through for 2 days, all the way through the entire sale. But as we just mentioned, as we get through each phase of the sale, we go into dog fights. And dog fights are where you're going to go up against, and we like to say go up against 5, but you're really encouraging these people. You're encouraging them to do really, really well, because you want everybody in your group you want to learn from them. You don't want to compete so much that you hope everybody falls on their face. You want to be able to learn from the people that you're hearing from. And when you're sitting there listening to 5 other people do their entry and warm up, or their inspection or whatever, now you're listening like, oh man, if I ever went up against this person, man, I'd kill him. They have no way to ever compete with me. But then you get to this girl over here, and all of a sudden she's like, man, I hope I never have to go up against her. I hope I never have to go up against Leah. If I did, she's going to win out every time. With what she just did, I couldn't compete. So, and you learn from people like that.
Yeah, and what being there numerous times already, I think one of my favorite things about that dogfight is it's the environment, the overall environment. No one is there to bash each other across the head. No matter how good you are, no matter how bad you are, all on the same team. And in those dogfights, you're getting feedback as you're going through those steps, to be like, well, hey, maybe you could try this instead of this, and being able to take that back home with you and actually apply it and see the difference, and the encouragement that you get, that people are willing to share that with you. I think that's definitely one of my most favorite things about Top Rep. Plus, you get an opportunity to win that belt and have the top rep, but my time's still coming. My time's still coming. But yeah, and then of course you got the mixer. We can all get together and have a little bit of fun. So maybe you can explain what that is as well.
Yeah, so at the mixer, it's after the first day, and this is where most people are introduced. If they haven't seen the pivot point cards yet, this is where they're introduced to the pivot point cards, and where we start to go through each of the objections, and you can earn extra points. But this is where you screw up. This is where people will either they'll earn some extra points, or they get to learn from others as they watch others go up against me and Jim, Nathan, whoever else might be. I think Mike had a set of cards as well, and so you can earn extra points throughout this mixer. And it's always fun because some people have never seen the cards and they fumble all over the place, and then others have seen them before and they are spot on. And it's always for me and Jim, it's surreal when someone sits down and goes word for word on a card. I mean, to watch you and to watch Anson Eldridge and some of these others. I mean, I was blown away with Ashlyn Coleman. Kluman, who won the last top rep. She just read them right off. I mean, it was fantastic to watch her do it.
She was on fire. She was definitely on fire. She was hard to compete with, very hard to compete with. But like I said earlier, it's taking what she did and trying to apply it to you and making it work what's best for you. You can't come across as her. You got to apply it to your own and try and make it from there. How do you think the flashcards? How do you think they have affected the industry as far as like helping at Top Rep and just helping in general?
It's really changed the game for a lot of sales reps. We've been sending out so many here lately, and it's like thousands of decks of these cards are going out. When you're looking at, we're sending boxes. We had a large company just buy 100, and then just today, a new client of ours, a big franchise, just bought another 60. And so, I mean, it's changing the game for sales. And you're one of the first people to hear about this. It depends on when this podcast is going to come out. You're going to see this. It's called the Pivot Point Black. So it's going to be pivot points, but it's going to be in a black case. And what's nice about it, so if you can imagine these pivot point cards, and as you're going through the pivot point cards, you got these little QR codes on each card. And so you take your phone. If you're trying to learn the card, you can actually take your phone, scan the pivot point card, and I'm going to pop up and teach you that pivot point card right there on your phone. And if you're inside of our elite membership, there'll be a button underneath my video, and you can click it and you can start role playing with our AI bot. So we're taking it to the next level with Pivot Point Black.
Talk about industry changing right there.
Yeah.
Role playing, I never really took it serious until we started conversing with you and training with you, the role that it can actually play. Because if you can get comfortable to do it anywhere, it's going to be that muscle memory. It's just going to snap. It's going to come back no matter what environment you're in when you're inside that home, even if you're pitching or selling outside the home, maybe on a doorstep, whatever. No matter what, it's just that muscle memory. It helps it come back so quickly.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, every time, I'm sure that once the black cards come out, we're going to be trying to figure out what's the next thing.
It seems like you always kind of have to be one step ahead of it. We're just going to be in trouble if homeowners get their hands on these things, because then we're just going to have nothing to be able to turn to.
That's right. You're correct.
But I guess at that point we would have to ask, what next?
That's right.
So
Exactly.
I saw I'm going to go off topic here for a little bit. I saw your post on social media. I think it was yesterday. Why would State Farm want these?
We have dentists. We have sent this out to numerous dentists. Med spas have bought these things. Gosh, I'm trying to think of other trades. I mean, obviously, we have a ton of plumbers, a ton of HVAC companies that buy them. When it goes into some of these, we have lawyers that have bought the pivot point cards, and they're really centered around home improvement. So when these other companies are buying these, and then we're getting back, oh my gosh, this is really up my game from a med spa. And I'm like, I want to know how. I want to almost get them on our podcast to find out, like, how are you using these to sell, these, I think the med spa was one of those where for men where they get their weight loss shots and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, how do you close them using this? I mean, when someone says I need to think about it, I almost want to hear how you're using that myself.
Yeah, how yeah, that would be very interesting to hear, to learn, to see if it's the same in sales in general, or just because you're selling a different product, is it going to be the exact same rebuttal? But compared to the roofing, you can't come back and be like, yeah, well, how long do you really need to think about it? Like, if this is the right price for you, come on, right?
That's exactly
So
right.
one of my favorite things from Top Rep is the quote that you guys use: sales reps are lazy and we are champions. Did
That's right.
that alone come from, how did you come up with that saying?
So I got really, really upset with my team one day, and because there's times as a sales manager, you just feel like this whole team just like totally reverted back. Like they all just became idiots or something. I don't know what is going on. Am I being punked right now? And I just like screamed in my office. It was late at night. I'm like, these guys are just lazy. And then at the same time, I'm like, I just got to turn these guys back into champions. And I wrote that down. And then I took it back into my sales meeting. It was the next day. And I'm like, guys, you guys are lazy, but you guys are champions. And here's the other part about it is we know that our competition is just as lazy as we are right now. And all we have to do is our job, which turns you guys back into champions. And so that's what we used to scream back and forth, even before Top Rep, is that sales reps are lazy, but we're champions. And so then I just brought that into Top Rep.
And sometimes it's not even about putting in the extra work. It's about differentiating yourself
It is.
when you're inside of that home.
And in roofing, it's more true than anywhere else because there's so many of these companies coming in. They're just untrained. Even if it was a sales guy that started the company, the sales reps are new, they're untrained, and the owners, because they're so busy, they just don't have time to train them correctly. And so again, you just have a bunch of brochure salesmen running around. And you don't, they sell, they do. I mean, they make a little bit of money until someone like us comes in and we show them how to be a champion. When we can come in and show you how this works and where your close rate can be and how to dominate in your area. I mean, we're over 1,000 companies that have just come through, like one-on-one virtual sales management, with Sam, over at Maumee, Sam Schwartz. I know you guys are all related. You guys are related, and it's funny how you guys go bouncing back and forth. He's like, well, what's Perry and them doing? And I'm like, well, I can't tell you even if I knew. But as fast as they have grown by using Top Rep and our coaching, and then now they're using Mike Alvarado, our COO, to train and to work with their team as a sales manager, as their new sales managers coming in. But that is what Top Rep does. I mean, not only is it the 2 boot camps a year, but we look at the entire what we can do for an organization as far as the sales and sales leadership. We can help you at any stage of the game.
Yes, and when you guys brought on Mike, I was a little shocked, but I wasn't really, because I think he's great for the position that he's in. He's very his teaching disposition, so to speak. He just has a way. I was talking to him at the Top Rep last year, and just his gentleness of the way that he approaches the training aspect of things. I was really, I mean, for me anyway, for my disposition, it matched up pretty well. So
Yeah, he is. He's a lot more even keeled. It's a lot like me and Jim. Jim is very. I don't like to say Jim is laid back. He's just very even keeled. I mean, just like Mike. And then me, I'm very high octane until I get out of that training space. And they're like, "Does Chuck even talk?" Somebody said it to me today. Very good friend of mine, Ashley Bowling. We were just having lunch with her, and she's a phenomenal sales professional. She's not even in our trade, but she does help us with Top Rep. But anyway, Ashley, she says, when you look at sales, you need to look less at your interesting extroverts and more at your interested introverts. It's these interested introverts that are dominating. But for years, before we had the data, we always had to have the people with the gift of gab. And the people with gift of gab, we have a hard time getting them to shut up. It's like, hey, selling ain't telling. You got to let the homeowner talk more than you. If that homeowner is talking and telling you what they want, then they're selling themselves all the way through the process.
Yeah, one of my favorite techniques by far is the one that you presented, the mirroring. And
Yes.
basically just repeating what the homeowner said back as a question, and it never fails, it works every time. And the homeowners, like, when they realize what happened, they just sit there and they stare at you and they're like, "How did just how?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, and especially nowadays, I feel like it's the easiest it's ever been to talk yourself out of a sale, and, like we said earlier, it's because of those brochure sales reps.
Right. And if we can just help anybody understand how to communicate effectively and kitty bar the door, what we can teach them from there.
So is this what you have coming up for Top Rep in March? Are you gonna be doing a little bit of the communication skills or
We are bringing a lot of this. Yeah, we are bringing a lot of this. Something that you may already know is one of our coaches is also Chris Boss. They have come up with a lot of stuff that they have noted or learned over the last couple of years that they've brought to us. So me and Mike traveled down to Phoenix. It's funny because that's where the event's going to be, but we traveled down to Phoenix to sit down and work with them for a couple of days and to be coached, on the new stuff that they're bringing to the table. And so we're actually going to be bringing it here in March to the team. So there's going to be some new stuff that you may not have heard before.
that'll yeah, I'm pumped about that. When I saw that you collaborated with him, I immediately thought of his book. And
Never
yeah,
split the.
I never really put like their frame of work into like our frame of work. And it was interesting to get that side of the portion of brain to like merge them together.
Right. Yeah. It's no different than, it's persuasion. When it really boils down to it, how much can you influence somebody? How much persuasion can you have on an individual? So if I need to influence somebody enough to get them to let hostages go, you know, can you imagine what I can do when all I'm trying to do is sell you a roof?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
So
and
it's the same.
100% agree. So yeah, and some closing questions here. What do you see for Top Rep in the next 2 to 5 years? Do you think it'll continue growing? I mean, at this point, it sounds like you guys are going to be limitless in your opportunities. How do you think, regarding the question earlier, as far as like AI and stuff like that, do you think that could eventually, so to speak, take it away from you?
No, actually, we are embracing it. And so you're going to see us bring a lot of it out. And I can't divulge too much, but we have a lot planned over the next couple of years based on AI itself and how we're going to change the entire game by using AI.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I think if it's used in the right way, it can definitely be a helping hand, and not a hindrance. But once again, it has to be used in the right way.
Right.
So if you had someone, a new rep coming in that you were training, what would some advice be that you would give them?
So the first thing that I would tell a new rep coming in is I just need them to really focus on the basics. That they're about to learn the steps of the sale, and they need to know this so well that they can't get it wrong. And so we have three phases of how people become the best. And so the first phase is competency. So you come in the door and you become competent. And the next phase is mastery. And then the following phase is going pro. And so it was Mike that actually really put this together, but we call it the runway to mastery. It should probably be the runway to pro because the very first 30 days, you are very competent. You learn the process. And then we teach you how to master it over the next 30 days. And then we teach you how to go pro over the following 30 days. So over those 90 days, and it's all inside of our platform. Our platform is, if I told you that our platform is state of the art, I would do it injustice. Nobody has put together a platform like this. And we've brought in some big coaches. We brought in some really big companies that use platforms, and some of these platform designers. And every one of them says, I've never seen anything like it. I'm like, because it's every time we build something, just like the pivot points and everything, every time we build something and we finish it, it's like you build it, and your mom's not going to let you keep it on the kitchen table, right? You got to tear it all down. Well, then you're going to build it. Well, then you got to build it even bigger. And so for us, once we've built something and it really works, we tear it back apart and figure out, how can we make it better? How can we turn this into something that nobody has ever seen or thought of before? And that's where things are coming to fruition right now with Top Rep.
Yeah, well, I think that's great to hear. And with that mindset, I honestly think that you'll be unstoppable with it. I really do. And I'm excited about March. And if you don't have your tickets yet, people, make sure you get them before they sell out. They might even be already sold out. I don't know. But
You're getting
get
close to
yourself
being
set up.
sold out. Yeah.
I think what, for the past two top reps you had, they sold out completely. Didn't you
We
guys
we've only not sold out one, and it was, well, no, two. We didn't sell out Denver, and we didn't sell out San Diego, which two places
okay.
we'll probably never go back to, because it's just, for whatever
You
reason, it just, I don't know if people just don't like to drive there or what, but those are just not great destinations we found.
yeah. Yeah, it's not a typical vacation destination.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
And
Chuck,
out of
thank you so
13,
much.
we've sold out 11 events.
That's crazy. And yeah, a few of those you even had to rent extra space to hold everybody because you had such high demand, right?
Yeah, if you remember the one there in Columbus, we sold out and people were calling the venue to get around us to still try to get in. It's like
Yeah,
having a concert and people were jumping the fence kind of thing.
I came back and Leroy was like, "How was it?" And I kept telling him, I was like, "It was just there was something different about it. I don't know what was different about that top rep, but there was something different about it." He's like, "Can you explain it?" I was like, "I can't. You just had to be there."
That one was
But yeah,
it just seems like every one of them, every time we do it, and it just like any other top rep thing we do, Jim and I will get together, or Jim, Nathan, Mike, we all get together. It's like, how do we make this the same but better?
mhm.
We want to make this, when people come back, that they it's the great information that they're used to getting, but how can we make the experience that much better? If you The last two, the venues have been the thing that one, a part of it that's been better. If you can remember, for a while, it seems like we were in civic centers. And so it's like, okay, we need to go and create an even better experience for them to stay and to actually enjoy themselves. So I will say the Ohio event, the venue outdid themselves. The food was amazing. The place was awesome. The chairs, if you can remember, I mean, you can almost fall asleep in the chairs. I almost had them take those chairs out.
I'm surprised we didn't start calling people out, Chuck.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, no, I appreciate you jumping on and being the first on my podcast. I enjoyed having you here, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Leah.
Of
All right.
course, you have a great day.
You too. I'll see you.